Any discussion on the agenda? No, all those in favor? It's carried. Um, Disclosures of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. Anyone? Seeing none. Adoption of the minutes from February 20th, 24. Anything that needs correcting or additions or on that? Someone to move the adoption of the minutes. Thank you, Jennifer. And a seconder on that. Amy, thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, so we're right into agenda items. So we have a special guest with us tonight, Cameron Jones. Welcome, Cameron. Our apologies for making you wait a little bit there while we had technology issues.
Not at all. Not at all.
Anyway, so Cameron's with the Upper Canada District School Board and principal of real world learning and student success, a topic that is dear to my heart for sure. So welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'll just make sure that you can see that screen that I'm sharing right now.
Yes, I think I can.
Brilliant. And I'm going to present it instead of. So folks, it's a pleasure to be here and to share some stories with you from the Upper Canada District School Board, and in particular our real world learning initiative from your communities. And really my goal today is to help you see what is happening right in your own backyard, and then wrap our conversation together with exploring how we might do more of this as time comes. So again, thanks very much for having me. Folks may have seen that real world learning is something that the press is picking up on. In fact, Dr. Richardson from the University of Ottawa is doing some research all over the board exploring this pedagogy that was really brought a voice in Executive Superintendent Hardy's The Relevant Classroom. And together, Executive Superintendent Hardy and I have been really pushing this approach to learning, first in the Ottawa Carleton District School Board and now in Upper Canada, as a means to bringing meaning front and center to both students and teachers. And the results, as you're about to see, have been really beyond what we could have imagined, and continue to surprise us and excite us and inspire us to kind of evolve the idea with students and teachers all over the school board. A quick primer on what we mean when we say real world learning. I would really come back to the premise of what learning looks like. I think all of us have probably spent some time in school at some stage of our life. And if we had to kind of draw a picture of what that looked like, we'd probably imagine, desks and books and handouts and tests and exams. What real world learning does is takes the fundamentals of education, reading and writing and math, and puts them in the context that all of us use every day. And so when we say real world learning, you're more familiar with real world learning than maybe even some educators might be, because the idea is to transform the classroom into a space that functions very much in the way that the real world functions, meaning that if all of us were to do a project together right now, we would serve different purposes, different roles, bring different strengths to a shared purpose, and that would kind of drive our collaboration. Another key piece of real world learning, and I hope one of the reasons that I've been invited to speak to you tonight, is this notion of being community connected in the experiential learning that we do. So not only does the classroom turn into a real world context that we would be familiar with in our own lives, but the work is meant to be happening beyond the walls of school. It's meant to be happening in the very communities that the schools are in. So it is that the learning the students are doing serve as a contribution to the community that they live in. And from that, we have this equation that we kind of like to refer to where you have meaning and purpose and contribution, and by extension, belonging, driving the learning that's happening in our schools. And my job in the next few slides will be to connect those premises to the projects that you're seeing as we go through the slides. Just really quickly, what does real world look like in your backyard right now? Well, it looks like students creating social enterprises. They're publishing books and making original music and short films and theater productions. They're leading change in with social justice and mental health and food security and housing insecurity, with respect to the environment, something I heard from students about today. They're working on challenges and trying to solve problems. And you'll see some references to UCDSB Grows. This is an initiative where students are working on things to basically improve the environment in which they live, and thinking about how they are stewards of the earth and how their learning can improve the state of the earth and the environment that we live in. They're inventing and they're making and they're creating to learn. They're involved in intergenerational projects all over the board, doing all kinds of different things with folks living in retirement homes and the like. And then they're also breathing life back in to community history in an initiative that we call We Were Here. And in fact, that's where we're going to start our trip in your own backyard in SDG. We're going to begin in North Dundas and South Dundas. In fact, we're going to begin at North Dundas District High School. Pardon me, North Dundas District High School. You may have heard of this project. It was in the press and got quite a bit of coverage. Students at North Dundas and students in all kinds of different subjects created what you're seeing on the left-hand photograph, 127 crosses commemorating soldiers that were killed in conflicts over the last 120 years, connected to that community and often to that school. Those crosses were fabricated by students in tech shops. They all include QR codes of the soldier that they're commemorating. And in the image that you're seeing on the right-hand side, you're actually seeing 4 students from North Dundas who joined me on a European excursion in France and Belgium, where we spent 10 days in Commonwealth war grave cemeteries and memorials all over Europe, where soldiers actually stood beside the headstones of soldiers that they had researched, and then presented those soldiers' lives in ways that made sense to them. And so whether that was in fiction or in poetry or in art, we had students really learning history as historians in the field where historians learn. We had a student from Charlan on this trip as well, and I was actually at Charlan at the beginning of this week meeting a community partner, and that community partner was actually the family member of the soldier Urquhart, who Leonie researched. And part of her research led to her making that connection to the family. And she's since been actually working with that family. We actually did grave rubbings in Europe. She brought her grave rubbing home and gave it to the family, gave it to Allison, and said, I want you to have this. And the beautiful symmetry of that story is that even the soldier's brother had gone to Europe trying to find his headstone and was unable to. And so Leonie was the first connection back to this lost family member from the First World War and made that connection back to the family right now. In Chesterville, we have students who've been working on all kinds of projects related to food insecurity and growing and thinking about ways that we can bring the community together and feed the community, I guess, literally and figuratively. And so actually, I'll be referencing a little bit later our podcast, and Robin Carrier's class actually is the subject of that the most recent episode of that podcast. But we're seeing students, and one of the reasons I included this slide, working beyond the classroom. So here's something that would be unique for all of us on the call: students who are actually not done the work of the project and so refused to stop. In one case, one of the students from the project spent time on the project all summer instead of doing summer holidays, he needed to continue following the work and seeing where it could go and what happened when the gardens actually harvested food. Because it meant so much to him. And we're seeing that all over the board as an example of what happens when the projects actually have purpose and meaning attached to them. Here you're seeing students from Nation View. You may be aware that Nation View, during some of the storms a couple of years ago, lost most of its tree canopy on the school yard. Those students have been involved as a result in all kinds of projects related to agriculture and getting, natural native species back into their yard in terms of trees and plants. And in the process, it seems to me like they're certainly having a good time along the way, but also understanding what it means to, get into the mud and actually make a difference to the community that they live in. This is Seaway District High School. We did a number of projects with timber framing. And in fact, I believe in Iroquois, these timber frames are now the property of the town and are going to be raised and used around the town in parks and the like. The reason I include this slide is I think there's something very, very unique to this project in the sense that these students are building something not in a theoretical way where it's like, great, you constructed that and now we'll have some other student use the wood for some other purpose. Instead, they're actually building a structure that one day they'll walk by the park in their community and they'll say, I built that. That's my learning right there. And I think there's something powerful to that concept, that we can have students do things that are for the community, but in turn they see themselves as citizens of that community, and indeed have examples of that citizenship for others to see, that they can point to them and say, this is what we did in school, rather than, what did you do in school? Nothing. What did you learn? Nothing. Right. This is a project also from the Iroquois area. Iroquois Public School worked with St. Lawrence College, making, I put in quotations, retro, because I think for many of us, these were the video games that we've grown up with. They're now retro video games. And the students built a retro console that they've since installed in the local public library for the community to be able to play these games. And maybe in our cases, we might be rediscovering, and in our students' cases, they might be discovering for the first time some video games that have a centerpiece to us. But again, I think you're seeing students learning to not only build, but use math skills to build something that would have been in the corner store when we were growing up. But this was the means to their learning and the expression of their learning. And the last project that I'll speak to in this part of our segment is an extension of that We Were Here project that I spoke of earlier with North Dundas and Charlan. These are students in elementary school also doing soldier research about soldiers from their community. You see them standing in front of the Morrisburg Cenotaph right now. And the beautiful thing about this, and some of the pictures you're seeing on the right-hand side, is the students are also going into retirement homes close to their school and interviewing the residents there about their experience and their family's experience during some of the conflicts that have occurred over the last 120 years, again, as the way to learning history. So they're historians in their community, and they're sharing that learning back with their community, stories that are often lost to the community, and they're doing that with the community as well. So rather than learning, names and dates, they're actually meeting with people, learning those stories, and then they're the caretakers of those stories and sharing them back into the community. When we move over to North Stormont and South Stormont, we see students at Tugwa creating an enterprise with the Ministry of Education's entrepreneurial pilot project. In this case, students have actually created a manufacturing firm, effectively, where they're going out into the community and they're consulting with different businesses, finding out what those businesses need, and then they're manufacturing them. They're designing them, they're getting feedback, and then they're delivering those products to the communities. And we see this happening all over the school board. And this is a beautiful example because these students were actually doing this in a media arts class. And as you see, they're creating really nice materials as the means to learning. Students in Avonmore were involved in a project. You see the St. Lawrence Mobile Labs in the background there again. These students are looking at ideas of community gardening as well, building raised planter boxes, and also conceiving of and beginning a seed library for the community. And again, with this idea of, I think, a connection to agriculture and the community that they live in, but also thinking about how can we feed our community while we learn the process of what it means to grow food, harvest it, and get it into people's kitchens. This is Rothwell Osnabrück. A little bit of a tongue twister for me. And we have students at this school doing all kinds of things. And I think the two that I picked out that were my favorite, running workshops intergenerationally, art workshops where students and residents were creating art together, and they eventually had a community art show. And really some young students, I think in grade 1 and grade 2, bringing French language signage to the ice fishing venue in the area, and recognizing that, you know, that language that they're learning in French actually has an application. It's not just a subject. And can they help translate what the experience that folks coming to this area are going to have when that French signage is not there? Well, there's your job. Now you can create that signage and figure out what needs to be out there for folks to engage with. In Glengarry, I start with, and I'm not sure if you're going to hear the sound. Maybe someone could just give me a quick thumbs up, but I'll talk over the sound anyway. But this is a lovely project that ended up connecting Glengarry District High School and Long Sault Public School. So if someone can just give me a thumbs up. If you hear the sound, I'll leave the sound. No? Okay. So what you're seeing right now, folks, is grade 7 and 8 students, based on a TikTok challenge, learned how to make prosthetic limbs. And they spent the better part of the year working with all kinds of organizations, including the War Amps, learning about what it was like to live with prosthetics, what were the design features that they should be aware of, and then constructing their own prosthetics. This project took a new meaning, though, when you see Parker in this last frame of the video right now, a student in grade 4 at Long Sault who actually was learning to live with a prosthetic. And so the students from Glengarry, hopped on a bus and went to Long Sault, brought their designed prosthetics with them, and ran a workshop for all of Parker's peers where they learned to, you know, move around the world with the prosthetic. In fact, they were also kicking soccer balls. And so you see here that all of a sudden real world learning is about even more than maybe what feels like the visible learning experience. It's also about learning what it's like for my friend to have to navigate the world with a prosthetic limb. And I'm learning that with these older peers who've made those prosthetic limbs so that I could have that experience. Whoops. We have students at Lagan Public School who, maybe I have to, oh no, one moment. I couldn't read my own slide for a second there, folks. I apologize. In partnership with Friends of Glengarry Trails Association, really enlivening the experience of walking the trail and creating an interactive scavenger hunt, which you'll see was noted in the local paper. But again, taking what they're learning and bringing it to the community in a way that they can engage with that learning. So rather than having something that ended at the end of the school year and stops there and I'll move on to the next grade, not unlike the students at Seaway who can point to the timber frame that they made, these students can actually walk the trails with their friends and family and say, you know, we made that and I have something I need you to learn about this. And I want to show you something I created in a QR code to a website that we've made so that more people can learn about the space that we're in. I have to be honest with you folks, if I wasn't here tonight, I would actually be at Charland District High School. And the reason for that is that the Clanstock students have a live show going on right now. You might ask, well, what is Clanstock? Well, it's turned into something that they actually called Rock the Wreck last May. It was a music thing, not unlike you might see at most high schools. It was an end of year music festival, but the music was hard rock. And the musicians were playing electric guitars and drums and singing through megaphones. And it was a 2 hour rock show that students were involved in creating the swag for, the light show for. They did all the sound, they played all the music, they ran the stage. And I have to tell you, as an aspiring musician still, it was like going to, the Canadian Tire Center and seeing a rock show, except that it was put on by teenagers. What I think makes this project even that much more special is they connected with the Glengarry Mental Health Association and raised over $5,000 for community mental health as one of the sort of, you know, inclusions to the concert itself. And so they are continuing this work. I was again at Surland earlier this week, and I met some students who didn't have time to talk to me when I asked them because they had to do 16 customized light shows, one for each song that's going on tonight. And I just wanted to know what they were up to because it kind of looked cool. And they said, we're really sorry, but we just don't have time right now. We've only got one song in the can. I was like, okay, understood. I think this is the last story that I'll bring you today. This is from Williamstown Public School. Folks might be familiar with Rose McCullough. And the reason I share this story is because I got to meet Rose just months before she retired. And what you see in that back right-hand corner is a zip garden. And a zip garden is something that's made by Zip Grow out of Cornwall, and it's a hydroponic gardening system. What was interesting about this day is as I was arriving at Williamstown, I was listening to The Current, and the episode of The Current was about how hydroponic gardening was going to be the future of food sustainability in Canada. And I walked into this classroom of kindergarten students who began to tell me that they were student farmers, pardon me, and they had spent the entire year planting and growing various vegetables in this zip garden. They learned about composting. They ate basil for the first time. And they were wondering with Zip Grow's engineers whether or not the compost that they got out of their food cycler could be used as the growing medium in their zip garden. To which the engineer said, I honestly don't know. I need to go back to my team. We will get back to you with an answer. And this has actually spurred a massive movement in the board where we have all kinds of students and all kinds of schools growing food using hydroponic gardens for all kinds of purposes. And if you look up a video by Steve Clark, it might be on his his Facebook site still, he actually mentions the food bank superheroes from South Crosby and Elgin, Ontario, who are now contributing food to 5 food banks in their local community and growing food on not a zip garden, but a zip farm with 16 vertical gardens in their school right now. So these are the kinds of projects that we're seeing all over the board. If you care to hear more stories or you're not tired of my voice just yet, you might go to our Real World Learning podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we are currently sharing our stories on Facebook and X. And you have QR codes there that you're able to link to. I want to conclude this short presentation just by saying that really my intent in coming to speak with you today was to talk about the stories that we can write together. And we all live in communities that have all kinds of encouraging things that students can do and problems they can solve and opportunities they can work on. And I think if we look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we probably find a lot of overlap between what you folks are concerned with in your municipalities and what our school board and by extension our students are concerned with. And I think that leaves us with an opportunity to talk about stories we might write together and then not just talk about them, but actually do something about them together. And so thank you very much for your time. And I would be happy to engage in conversation or answer some questions if that's something that folks are interested in doing.
Well, thank you, Cam, for your presentation tonight. One word, and that's wow. It's it really is amazing. And I knew of some of the projects. I come from North Glengarry. I was part of the Trails project that the group did or whatever. And yeah, it's unbelievable, some of these things that are happening out there. And I think one of the ways we could probably help out a little bit too is our local municipalities to promote this a little bit more through our websites and things like that. I think would help. Um, and not to say that you need the promotion, but promotion, it makes a difference to people, right? On Facebook, that kind of stuff or whatever, people see what's going on, and yeah, it's such a great initiative, and I'm so proud of Upper Canada for doing this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I to your point of promotion, I think it's really about storytelling, and I think one of the things that we talk to teachers about all the time is if we're not telling our stories, then people are going to tell them for us. And I think having the opportunity to share these stories with you is sort of an illustration of, well, what's happening in our schools these days? Well, this is what's happening in our schools these days, and it's encouraging.
So I'll open the floor up. Is anybody else would like to make some comments tonight? Stephanie.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, through you. Thanks so much, Cameron, for being with us and sharing all this information. A couple of things were coming to mind is that, so I'm also a member of the UCDSB Parent Involvement Committee. And I was like, oh, we could really use that it would be great to share that presentation or that overview with the members of the committee. Some folks are new and are not aware of some of those things, the great things that are happening across the board. And it's, it's good, regardless of whether it's in that community, like parent community, or whether it's the greater municipal community, just getting the information out there just helps spur more of these great programs. And so my two oldest kids go to Charlan, my youngest goes to Williamstown Public. So familiar with, and I am sad also that I'm not at Rock the Rec as well. But yeah, or sorry, not Rock the Rec because it was in the Rock the Rec when it was in the arena. But yeah, so definitely there's a close collaboration there. But I guess my question is, there's often times where municipalities have ideas of like, well, wouldn't it be great if we, some sort of project, like, when you see the like the shade structures they did in the Seaway, what's the best way for municipalities to connect with those folks? Is it, is the principal always the first point of contact, or is there a different way to go about it?
I would encourage you to go to the school first, absolutely. But by all means, my team can help support that as well. One of the great joys of my work is actually meeting with folks like you and talking about how we could work on projects that you're envisaging. And I'm more than happy to have that conversation wherever that makes sense, and then bring that to schools as it makes sense also. And I think, we are in many ways looking for those kinds of projects. And I'll just give you a quick example. I had the opportunity to speak at the municipality of South Dundas last spring. Since then, Railcroft, I believe, is the developer. Craft, thank you. Just about to put in a community of 300 homes right across from Iroquois. And the reason I share this is because these little collisions happen all the time. You sort of share these stories, you put them out in the community, and then things start to come back. And in this case, an opportunity for students at Seaway to actually participate in what will be a multi-year process of building these homes. And so we're in the process of figuring out the details of that. But really that started with a what if question, right? What if we reached out to the Upper Canada board and could we develop something where we know we need kids in the trades and we're about to build 500 homes? Would they like to see what that process looks like? Yes, we absolutely would like to do that. So big or small, would love to have those conversations with you, Stephanie, and then either help you make the connections or just bypass us and go straight to the students, because I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I don't have the capabilities of hitting a little button on my phone, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know.
No, I was just going to say that what South Dundas has done is we have directly contacted the Seaway High School, the principal, and a couple of the teachers directly there. And we find that is the best way to collaborate with these different programs and different, we just came up with a number of pop-up tents, wooden pop-up tents that were currently built. Some of the students actually painted one of these pop-up tents as well, beautifully done. And that's what we find is the direct connection between the municipality. Dave Jansen, our Parks and Rec director, has done a wonderful job connecting. Our mayor has went to the school, our CAOs went to the school and directly talked with the principal. So that would be my advice to anybody else in the municipal world, is have that direct connection to the school. It serves it serves a great benefit, and it's just crazy how you were just talking about that subdivision, because that was on my tip of my tongue as well. We have Velcraft Homes, which is a builder out of Ottawa that's come to South Dundas and throughout there in Brockville and whatnot, and having that direct connection is invaluable. And it actually leads to another little bit, if you don't mind, another little bit of a session we had with the municipality with Honorable David Piccini, the Minister of Immigration, Training and Skilled Laborers. They invited South Dundas to a session to purposely talk about how do we get more skilled laborers in the workforce, and what are some of the avenues to do that. We had a couple local builders. I think there was 3 or 4 local builders that joined. MPP, Honorable MPP Nolan Quinn was there as well. And one of the things we owned on, and one of the things, the messaging we gave to the ministers, was we need to have more skilled labor courses offered in our school. At one time when we were growing up, there was a number of courses that was carpentry, electricians, all of that good stuff, which seemed to be kind of stripped down a little bit. I know that they're starting to reintroduce that with Seaway in the timber framing class, but that's one of the things that I think as a group, we should concentrate on and continue promoting, because that's where we're lacking, is in skilled labor in the real world. And we got to make it, and I say we because I think it's collectively we, but we got to make it that skilled laborers is an actual career. At one time it was, okay, if you didn't go to college, you didn't go to university, well, you're with a hammer and nails and building houses, and that wasn't a glorified trade. But it really is a skilled labor, it's skilled career. And I think that's part of the promotion that we need to continually doing with the school boards. But just having that direct connection with the principal is one of the benefits of promoting and growing these types of programs.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your comments. Anybody else with comments tonight for Cam? Well, that looks like about it for tonight, Cameron. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really, really appreciate it. I think I agree with you, Mark. I think reaching out to your local school and your local principals is a good way to go for sure. I know that there are lots and lots of wonderful teachers in our school district of Upper Canada, and they'd be more than happy to hear from you. I guarantee it. So if we can reach out, that would be great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay, so thanks again, Cameron, and all the best with the projects or whatever. They're so great.
Great. Thanks, folks. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to 5.2 on our agenda tonight, which is committee focus moving forward. And I'd just like to say that Maureen, you had sent out something regarding inviting our local MPP, and I think that would be a really, really good step. I think that could be one of our ways into the Ministry of Education, would be through Nolan Quinn, but also we also have Stefan Serdazan, who's North Glengarry's MPP. So we should probably include both of them. But I think if we could have some conversations with them and let them know sort of what we're doing, and that just the idea of getting school boards on track or on side with us or whatever, moving forward, I think would be a good step. Thoughts and comments on that?
Perhaps I could just add a couple of comments, Jeff. I thought that
Sure.
when we had our last delegation, although it wasn't with the minister themselves, MPP Quinn was very good in that discussion.
Yeah.
And he spoke to, I think, some of the concerns in our region with respect to how the school boards are not necessarily really good communicators with each other and maybe don't work really well with each other. He was really good to kind of emphasize that, and they were listening to his comments. I do think that MPP Quinn has a future with the Ford
Yes.
government, obviously now as a minister. So you can see that he, in this meeting, you can see how staff have a sort of a command of respect for him now that he's a minister. And I think that he would be good if we let him know, what our concerns are, especially as we look to, whether or not there's ever going to be a lifting of the closure, the moratorium for closure of schools. So I think that it would be good to have him kind of aware of how, we're in maybe a little bit of a holding pattern until we hear more from the province. But so we could certainly arrange for that meeting. I think that it would be, I think he does want to know, he does very much want to know when we're submitting delegations for ministry conversations and he knows education is an important file to SDG. But it was just a thought that maybe since we don't have a delegation at Roma, it might be good to start to engage our local MPPs.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Maureen. Jennifer, did you have something?
I did. So
Okay.
yeah, I agree. I think that it would be great to have Nolan Quinn join us for a meeting. In addition, my apologies, I've missed a couple meetings due to work. And so I wanted to just to check to see, have we had the opportunity to have the chairs of school boards come in and meet with us as well? Where are we at with that?
So I met with the chairs of the French public and the English Catholic school boards, those two chairs, and had productive meetings with them or whatever, in-person meetings. I had a phone call from the chair of the Upper Canada board. He was sort of bucking the idea of meeting in person, and I'm not sure why that was, but he did not seem to want to meet in person. So anyway, we had a pretty good telephone conversation as well, or whatever. So and cleared up some things, I think. So that's where we're at with that. Are you talking about inviting the chairs to our meeting? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I guess I was looking to see if there's an appetite for that with this committee to have the chairs attend a meeting, or even just also to discuss, in the past, we've had sometimes where chairs of school boards, along with trustees, have done the rounds throughout our municipalities individually as well. And so I haven't really seen that for a few years. So just looking to see if, that's on their to-do list, if there's any interest in them doing that, to have the opportunity to present some things through the municipalities directly, or really just to this committee. I think I would be interested in sending out an invitation. I don't think that
Okay.
necessarily, I think there are different questions for different chairs. So maybe, it could be some consideration for future guests to attend our meetings for sure. I don't know, open to hear what the rest of you think.
Okay, any comments on that? Stephanie?
I think that's a good thing. I'm trying to think like what would be the downside of that. I think, that's something that we should always be striving to do is like open up those lines of communication, make us less scary for those who don't want to meet with us, maybe.
Yeah.
But also, like take the pulse of what's on their minds. I
Mhm.
mean, and see how, maybe there's things that we could collaborate on with them, like what they, just like those real life, those real learning, opportunities, as you were saying, we're looking for ideas. I mean, maybe other boards are also looking for ideas, and speaking specifically to the school closure moratorium, like is that something that is putting a lot of pressure on I mean, the Upper Canada seems to have been, saying that it's, they don't have any plans, so we make it sound like it doesn't affect them, but it'd be interesting to hear from the other boards as well, just to know if, is this something where we're advocating maybe kind of in different directions or not? Just again, to understand sort of the pulse, understand the pressures that they're under, to understand where we can fit in and where we can work together and what we can influence.
Right. Just a comment sort of on that or whatever. I had a thought that maybe we should try and facilitate a school board, like all school boards type, like forum type. I don't know, that our committee could maybe facilitate something along that lines, where we would bring in the chairs of the school boards and staff too, right? Staff of some of the upper staff of the school boards, and that to to sit down and talk. You know what I found in meeting with the three school boards that I did, they don't have a clue what the other school boards are doing. They really don't. They're they're all, and I understand that. I get it, because they're everybody's looking out for their own little domain or whatever. But at some point we have to look at the bigger picture and sort of look at all the school boards together, and how they can work together. And maybe I don't know, maybe we can, maybe it's not a forum or whatever, but maybe we can look for ways to engage the different school boards to try and work closer together, because that would, in my mind, that would help, and that would help out with things like sharing facilities and things like that or whatever, if they've got some contacts with those other ones. Jennifer, you had a comment.
Yes, I think it's all about building relationships, and I think it's a good point too to look at, inviting senior staff as well. I think that we don't always have an opportunity with the yearly, I think it's called CPPG meeting, that's held to build a relationship. It's really always been, it's been presentation based, largely like 95% presentation based, and we're listening. And then, a small portion of time for questions. And then those questions are shared for, throughout a wide region. So if we had the opportunity to ask questions, and just listen too, and find out what are some of their concerns, how are ways that we can collaborate, what can municipalities be doing to build stronger relationships with the school boards and with even the schools themselves too. What are the connection points? I think that would be an interesting avenue to pursue.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Any other, Mark?
Yeah, the only other thing I just want to make sure it's on our radar. There is indications, or are indications, that we will be getting into an early provincial election in 2025. So I think that's even more important, that we should get connections with the school boards and the schools directly, and to hopefully come up with an advocacy plan. So if there is perhaps a change of government, or if there is a change that's a minority government, or something does change, that we are ready for, if a moratorium is lifted, if there's a change in philosophy, if there's a change in direction. So I think that's more important. Just to Jennifer's point of connecting and getting the school boards connected, I think that we really should be concentrating on that moving forward as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. All right. Any other questions or comments about that? I was going to ask Maureen if we received any more where we're sort of at, because I know data was one of the things that we had looked at or had talked about. Is there any more sort of updates on data from the different school boards, or how's that going?
So the school boards have excellent data now available on their websites. So you can really drill down into a lot of detail. So I think that the data that's available now versus what would have been available 5 or 6 years ago when schools were being looked at, I think is much better. So we can help if anybody in the committee wants to see how to navigate through that data. We could probably help with links to access that. With respect to the data, I don't know that there's anything that specifically that we could provide to the committee. If they would want, we're happy to put something together. But I think what has come out of what happened before is now the data is much more open, it's more accurate, and it's easily accessed through their websites.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer.
Data, my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to school boards. I will say that I think that school boards had fairly good data platforms in 2016. I think that there was also even a parent council component into the data that went into schools to make sure that all those extra things that were happening in schools were accounted for as well. And there was a responsibility for parent councils to review the data also. However, not really knowing what the numbers were for, capacity, utilization, and all the other things that might be happening within schools, such as lease space. So I will caution, I really, really, really think that it's important for us to consider having our own data management of the information that's being housed by school boards, but for us to bring it in so that we have our own spreadsheets that we're managing and watching trends of enrollment, watching and having the opportunity to really verify the information. Because, we all looked at it in 2016 and thought that it was correct. And I'm not sure, how do we know it's correct now? I know that it's really hard to hear, but it comes from somebody who's lived the most devastating experience of having decisions made because of incorrect data. And also we don't want to be caught unaware where a school's got significant declining enrollment within, SDG, and we haven't flagged it ourselves. And I really think it's important to know, this would be a question that I definitely would ask school boards too, is how they're measuring their capacity and utilization, because sometimes there are variants on how that's done based on what groups are leasing space within schools. And so I think that that's something that I probably will always raise a red flag on, because we lived it so profoundly in my municipality. But that's why I thought that it would be really important for the counties, our rural education committee, to hold the data ourselves. We should be looking at facility condition index for our schools and knowing what's deteriorating. And how it's being maintained. Like, how do we know what questions to ask if we're not looking at it? And it's really hard if you're going from, school to school to school, and we're not putting all the information together, because they're usually housed different ways through the school board websites. And we've got schools in various boards too. So if we could bring that data together, that's something that I still think would be really important for this committee to do.
Okay, thank you. do you have any ideas? Like you were talking about enrollments and that kind of thing. I know schools are very guarded about enrollment, as far as I know. Like if I called a principal and asked what's your enrollment, would they tell me?
Well, the enrollment is likely on the school board websites for the schools. They might not give you a breakdown per class. That I
Right.
recall being significantly difficult to get in
Okay.
2017
Okay.
and
Okay.
actually having to work through the ministry to get. But like why shouldn't the
Okay.
enrollment be available to us? And also maybe if we started collating the data, we would see where those gaps are, because I think it's important to break it down. It's really important to break it down to see per grade what enrollment is, so that like if you've got declining enrollment coming down the pipeline, when you've got kindergartens that are getting smaller and smaller and
Right.
smaller.
Right.
Or also let's look at the positive way, maybe bigger and bigger and bigger, and what does that
Yeah, right.
spawn?
Yeah. Yeah. Stephanie.
Yeah, so I'm looking at like the school information profiles that are on the UCDSB website. Now, unless there's a new repository they have, like for example, for Glengarry District High School, and it seems like the other ones I poked around in, like it's interesting that they only have enrollment headcount numbers as of October 31st, 2023. So clearly, like it hasn't been updated for 2024, and they have like 5 years of enrollment history for each school.
Okay.
But again, like this system I find very clunky to go through to try and like go here and then go there, and then it's like the way it's so beautiful, but it's not very like user friendly if you're doing like data mining. But
Right.
definitely, I mean, I'm on the same page as Jennifer. Like, why shouldn't we have access to this information? And I think it should be in a way that is easier for us to use for our purposes, I guess, of monitoring situations.
Okay. All right. Anyone else on data? Okay. Maureen, do you have any comments to make on the data?
Yeah, so I think depending on how big we want to make this project, my one concern would be I don't think between Kimberly and I we're properly
No.
resourced to be able to pull all that together.
I
We
agree.
did have some money in our budget this year for the Rural Education Committee, but more so I think we were thinking about advocacy, or if the committee wanted to have a little bit of consulting done. I think, I guess we could take it back, take a look at it, and then try and determine, is it something that, we might be able to find a resource that might be able to do it, or hire a resource that might be able to do it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you could maybe moving forward for sort of our next meeting, if you could maybe put something together as far as,
Yeah, and
I think we need to, and I think we also need to know exactly what we're looking for, because
right,
there's a ton of data there. And I think we could spend a lot of time dealing with stuff that doesn't affect us that much.
right. There's a lot of schools within SDG, and there's different school boards. So to collate the data, so if we wanted to take a look at enrollment, if we can get that information, I mean, I would say if it's sort of 6 touch points of information, it's probably easily managed. But if we want to, extend it to, like somebody talked about like a facility condition index, I'm not quite sure how consistent that information might be throughout. So that might be something that might be a little bit more difficult to be able to understand or get the information on.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, part of that might be when we want to have, if there's an ability to have conversations with the school boards, right? Because if they have schools that from an age and a condition perspective doesn't look like they're reinvesting in those schools, then, those are the questions maybe we want to ask to the school board to determine if we should be concerned about that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yes, Jennifer.
To the point of facility condition index, I'm not on the website or anything. I don't know, Stephanie, if you're still looking at it. That used to be something that schools will publish. So again, I think it's just if it is published, I think it's important to kind of grab the snapshot, yeah, and kind of data dump it into our spreadsheet so that we have, we would have an overview of as of, March 1st, this is what our data looked like, March 1st, 2025 kind of thing. And then that way, it could be something that would be, an annual update where we update and then we can track changes and trends. And then also maybe those who are a little bit closer to the schools in their community would have the opportunity to flag if something looks different. But it also would give us the opportunity to see like, hey, wow, there's some cool there's some cool relationships happening regarding use of facilities at Charlan. Like, why can't we do that? At Seaway, for example, so just being able to see some of those things, I think use of facilities is something that's really important for our residents because our schools really are a gem in our communities, and those facilities are hugely, hugely important for us to be able to offer recreational programs. And access to them, and those who have day programs, those who have evening programs, and knowing whether they're available through the summer or the weekends and how that all works. So that's another component that we could be looking at as well. But yeah, and then I think if everything was collated to one space, you're getting a snapshot in time of what the information that was available looks like. You're able to see the gaps, and it also would be what would spawn questions when we have the opportunity to meet with the chairs, or at the annual CPPG, or when you have the opportunity to talk to your school board trustees, because we would just be able to see it. It would just be at the ready.
All right. Anything else tonight?
One thing I just wanted to mention, like back to the earlier topic, is if we do have a thing with all, like get the boards together, which I think is a really good idea, just to give some thought to like simultaneous translation. Because I know oftentimes French language communication is it's, it's a sensitivity I think we have to be, we have to think about. And I think if we want that to be a success, I think having some sort of something like that, I think would make a big difference, I think, to the interest of the different partners who often are not at the table.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. All right. What else did I have? I had on my list, should I be reaching out to the chairs again at this point?
How long has it been since last?
Well, it was probably back in probably almost a year ago now.
Yeah, then I would say yes. That would be my vote.
Yeah.
Okay. I could just reach out to them and just checking in to see if there's any issues or whatever, that kind of thing. And whether I do that in person or whether I do that via email or whatever, just to let them know that we're still here and we're interested in what's going on in the board or whatever, and that kind of thing. Okay, I can
test
do that.
for their interest in getting everybody together, see if they like that idea.
I could. Yeah, I could see what kind of interest there sort of is for that. Yeah. Okay. Interest. Okay. All right. Anything else tonight? All right. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. We need an adjournment, I guess. Someone to adjourn tonight. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Do we need a seconder for that? For adjournment? Yes. Okay. We never do a seconder for some reason. I don't know. Stephanie's seconder. Thank you.
I only came back for that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my computer.
We'll put Amy down on the. We'll put Amy down as the seconder for the adjournment.
We're on it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight. And if we don't see you before the holidays, have a safe and happy holiday.
You too.